All week long, we are talking about controlling me, controlling ourselves. And not in a way that we hold ourselves back controlling, although maybe that's how this works out. I think more in a sense of why do we do what we do? And yesterday we talked a little bit about our knowledge and how that directs a lot of what we do. Today we're going to have a conversation around our experience and how my experience does, in fact, control me to some certain degree. All of that and more coming up on episode 941 of today's Antidote.
Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote provides an opportunity for business owners and leaders to discover what is real for them and to be impacted by what is real for others. That is the Renegade way. Let's get real. We all face challenges and get stuck occasionally and are looking for an antidote. Each weekday, this show dives into a topic that may have you stuck, frustrated, and uncertain. Our goal is to share our value in an effort to help you find that one thing, the antidote to your challenges, so that you can get results and make more money. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom.
Good morning, Bob. How are you today?
I'm good. I thought for a second we had the wrong episode number, but it looks like you're right. I apologize. I was thinking that we missed 940, but it's right there.
It was yesterday.
There you go. Okay. So that's good. How's it going?
I am well, thanks. I'm looking forward to our conversation today. It was interesting. I was thinking about that whole idea of controlling. And, I think sometimes that's not always seen in a light that people want to even contemplate or consider, that they are being controlled. And yet, when we think about it as what's real for us, our knowledge, experience, and our perspective, that drives everything that we do. Or at least helps us make decisions about what we are going to say or do or think.
Or not say or do.
Or not say or do. And so in some regards, what's real for us does typically control a lot of what we do. Now, there are outside factors that impact it all the time, and which might have you not always going off of your knowledge, experience, or perspective because of some outside force. Or maybe it's an inside force that you chose to indulge in.
Steven's with us this morning. Good morning, Steven. He says good morning to us. And he says, controlled anger is a useful skill many don't talk about. So there's an example of controlled anger, right? I've used that a number of times when dealing with challenging customer service situations where I might appear to be angry and it's in control, and then I take care of that situation, walk outside, and people there with me think I'm angry. I'm like, okay, let's go get dinner.
Well, I think that's when sometimes you create that illusion of anger or the perception of anger in an effort based on typically when you've seen that have effect on others or on a situation and think that it might be of value at this point. So often
it's a calculation, right?
It's a calculation, and you're drawing on what's real for you, which is all of your knowledge, experience, and perspective. And if you have seen a certain situation or a similar situation where that had an effect on what was happening, what's controlling you is that's what you know. So now you use that, leverage that knowledge, that experience in this situation in hopes that you would get similar results, which we can't always control.
I think where this can sometimes cause us trouble is we don't realize the control that our experience has over us. So I do some marketing work, and when I'm doing marketing work, often my clients are very narrow in what they think that they are, who they're trying to serve. And so it's like, this is early in an organization's life, let's say a startup or a company that's going through a big change, new product. It's like, okay, who do you think this could serve? everyone. Okay, well, my experience is if it's everyone, it's no one. And then they might segment to a really tiny group. It's like, well, what about this? And we're limited by our experience. We know the marketing that we know. I know that certain people, what's an example? Most of the people that I've come across that I know wear lipstick that would be a shade of red. So in my mind, if I see black lipstick, that's an outlier. Now and it just popped into my head. I'm not saying anything good or bad about lipstick colors at all. Here it is Halloween, where black lipstick would probably not be unusual to see around places. But in my mind, I have a preconceived notion that lipstick should be a shade of red. So if someone comes to me and says, hey, I want to sell lipstick, I'm going to say, well, yeah, I'm sure it's a shade of red. No, actually, it's blue. Come on. I can't reconcile that in my mind. And so that experience of mine that lipstick should be red controls me as I look at the world. And if I'm not looking at that and having a feedback loop somewhere that says, hey, Bob, you know what? Lipstick could be any color under the rainbow. You think it needs to be red because that's the world you've been in. But I hate to tell you, there's brown, there's black, there's purple, there's blue, there's green. I have no idea all the lipstick colors. I can't even begin to tell you. But what I think I struggle with is, and I think we all do, is if I believe that red lipstick is the only color of lipstick, unless I have an outside force that's going to tell me somewhere along the way, hey, Bob, you know what? There are other colors. I'm going to be limited by my experience. And that can often be what bamboozles me or causes me to make incomplete decisions.
Well, that goes back to the sense that if you believe your knowledge, experience, and perspective is right, and everyone else's is wrong, that will lead you to making some of those decisions, as you only know that it's red lipsticks. And anything else would be an outlier and weird or whatever. And so that perspective and knowledge and experience of being right limits your ability to see what else might be out there that could be real for someone else. Again, why I like the differentiation between what is right, why I don't like that, and I like using the word what's real, because it's different for each of us. And I think one of the challenges that we find is that when we're running a business or we're leading our groups, all we know is what's real for us based on our knowledge, experience, and perspective. And so sometimes we can't see some of the other perspectives, some of the other things that are out there. And so we're limited in what we are able and thus willing to consider as we try to grow in what's moving forward. And I think that's one of the things that we want to talk about as people start to look at what are we going to do in 2024 and how are we going to not be controlled only by our knowledge, experience, and perspective, is that there might be other knowledge, experience, and perspective out there that we could consider that would allow us to expand what we're doing and be less controlled, limited by, for all of us, a limited knowledge, experience, perspective based on the knowledge, experience, and perspective of the world. So if that's something that you're struggling with, is you feel like you're a little bit limited in what you're able to do with your business or in your leadership role, you can't quite figure out how what's real for your team members isn't real for you. And so you're struggling with how to manage them. This workshop that we're going to do on December 5th, 2023 at noon, we're going to sculpt a healthier business or leadership role for 2024. So we're going to work through a process to help you not only see what's currently real for you, and also try to understand what might be real for others that could be beneficial for you to impact what's you're doing, so that you can look at your business, your world, your team a little differently. So if you look more information about that, just reach out to Bob or I, direct message us. We'll have some registration links available soon. We wanted to make sure we got the date out there. You save that date, December 5th, 2023 at noon Eastern.
Tom, there's another facet to this, I think, also, and that is often we think of our experience as universal.
That's right.
That red lipstick, hey, red lipstick is the only lipstick that's available out there. And then suddenly someone says, hey, you know what? I like black lipstick. You're like, whoa. That doesn't work. It doesn't compute with my knowledge, my experience. Therefore, I either go, nope, can't be any other color. It's only going to be red lipstick, or
you're wrong.
You're wrong, or my head explodes with, whoa, if there's red and there's black lipstick, what if there's blue? What if there's green? And then I get paralyzed by the possibilities that have been opened up to me.
Sure.
Each of those can be powerful deterrents to achieving what you're trying to get to, because they take a lot of brain power, and it's hard to reconcile on your own because it shifts the whole paradigm.
Well, and you don't know how to incorporate that into what's real for you. Sometimes challenging, right? You've only known this. You've only experienced this, and now you're starting to experience something else, and now you're trying to figure out what I think sometimes unfortunately happens is all those things, especially if you think that what is real for you is what is right, then it becomes very difficult, because now everything that you thought was right is turned upside down because you've discovered other things that were going on. It's like anytime you get a new piece of information, it's something that you didn't know. You were telling me earlier about, you were talking to somebody about how many small businesses there were.
Right.
And when they heard the number, they were clearly like, well, that's crazy. I can't even fathom that.
Right.
And based on that, what's real for them now is very different than what was real for them the moment before you told them that. And I think that's part of the challenge, is then how do we not let what's real for us, our knowledge, experience, and perspective, keep us from being open to that there is other knowledge, experience, and perspective out there that could be of real value if we were willing to see it as a way, as an opportunity to impact who and what we are.
I was thinking while you were talking of a really great example, which is astronomy. Remember probably 10, 20 years ago when they said to us, hey, bad news for all you people that learned about the 9 planets. It's really only 8. That whole Pluto thing, we were just kidding. It's not really a planet. And then the other thing that we start to see with the Hubble telescope and the Webb telescope is these galaxies and these all these things that when I was a kid, that it was like, there's the solar system and everything spins around the sun and that's it. There's no more. And now we know that there are all kinds of these, ecosystems out in space that are very similar to what we thought was the only one. And I struggle to reconcile that in my head. I really do, because first of all, I can't see it. I can see evidence of it, but I can't see it for myself. And second of all, if Pluto's not a planet, what else might be wrong? And I think that's one of the things that happens when something goes against what we thought, and it's something so foundational, it's really hard to recover from that, because it starts us questioning everything. So now it's not just my experience around the planets and what I learned to be 9 planets, really it's just 8. But, well, if they're 8 planets, is there a solar system? Are they really going around the sun? You start to question everything, and that can be paralyzing too.
Well, here's the thing, I think why a change in your mind shift can really help you avoid some of those paralyzing moments is not that that's right. That's just what's real in the moment. Until we discover something new. And my belief is that there are a lot of things being discovered all the time that goes against conventional wisdom, or conventional, this is what is right. And I think that the more we think things are right, the more we're going to struggle. Because the more when that isn't as right as we thought it was, even a little bit, we're like, oh boy, now what? And you go back to that, is everything that I've learned about astronomy, or everything I've learned about business, or everything I've learned about the way that I do things now wrong? And so we're on the other side of it. Before we thought, well, we had it all. Now we realize that maybe we don't have any of it. And it becomes very challenging, I think, to wrap your head around the fact that what you thought was right is not necessarily factual.
Steven's got probably one of the best comments ever. Use the bamboozle word more.
Yeah, I heard that, and I was like, that's an interesting word choice.
Well, and I was thinking about, when we talk about getting things right, that just a person popped into my head, and he's been popular because of the musical, and that's Alexander Hamilton. And throughout that, he's constantly writing over and over and over, trying to figure out what the country should be, how it should be formed. And his wife, I believe it is, says to him, all you're ever doing is writing. I'm paraphrasing. I'm not getting the words to a song. But all you're ever doing is writing, and trying to find what makes sense. And he's literally recasting it every time. So his experience, he's coloring everything he does with his new experience, and then trying to make sense of it. And then he's doing it again and again and again. It's that iterative process that can be tough. I've taught a lot of students writing, and you have the students who are like, yeah, I wrote 10 drafts of this. Can you look at my 10th draft? Then you have the student who writes it the night before it's due, first draft, and it's full of errors and it's not well organized. And well, I wrote it last night. They didn't give it the experience that needed to be able to reach the point that it needed to be something that could be useful in the discourse.
Yes.
Because they had limited experience. Their experience was from midnight to 4 a.m. when they thought about it, versus the person who wrote 10 drafts and thought about it probably day and night for weeks. And There's a big difference in the output. The person who's thought about it for weeks often has a more refined sensibility around the topic than the person who writes it in 4 hours right before it's due.
Sometimes. I think a lot of that also is based on, what's real for you, your knowledge, experience in the past. If you have more understanding or grasp of the topic, you potentially could in a night, you could sit down and formulate a paper in that instance that was more impactful than somebody who had thought about it and wrote it and rewrote it. And again, I think it goes back to, what is your knowledge, experience, and perspective around whatever the topic is you're writing about. Like, again, if I was writing about lacrosse officiating and you were writing about it as well, I could probably, in some regards, sit down in one sitting and write a first draft that would be a lot closer to what I would submit than you likely could.
Depending on what the topic was.
I said lacrosse officiating.
No, within that, though, because there could be a topic in that. For instance, if women's and girls lacrosse officiating is like teaching a college course.
True. Fair.
That would be a topic I know a lot about. I could make that parallel very easily. That would be more of a struggle, I think, for you, because your experience isn't around that. But if it was how to manage women's and girls lacrosse official career with a small business, you would be able to nail that right away, because that's your experience.
Correct. And I think that's always that's why I think there's no quote unquote right way to write a paper like that. It's all based on what do you know.
That was really good.
It's all based on your knowledge, your experience, and perspective, which is going to control a little bit of what are you going to need to create the output that you desire. Someone may have much more of that ingrained in what's real for them than someone else. And so they don't need the multiple times of writing and rewriting, even though I know that can always be helpful. So I think that's the challenge, right? Is that trying to not believe that there is only one way, and that it's only in your experience is all that you need to then do whatever it is you're going to do. And that if you allow that to happen, and you can, if that controls you, is that I have all the knowledge, experience, and perspective I need. And today experience, in some ways that was my statement, is I felt like I had all of the experience in lacrosse officiating that I could make that statement, that I could probably write that more effectively. And then you turned around and showed me another way in which I might not have had all that I needed to be able to formulate what it was I was trying to accomplish.
And I think that can sometimes be the issue. Like, I know you don't like to use the word expert.
True.
If that comes up, if someone calls you an expert, that's fine, but you will not call yourself an expert. And in girls and women's lacrosse, I would consider you an expert in a lot of ways. However, I found a way for it to be something outside of your frame of reference. And I think that's what happens to us in businesses and in leaders. We think we know something, then someone layers on something else and it changes. And in our fast-moving world, what you think you may understand about technology, about teams, about dealing with millennials, with the next generation, the alpha generation, all those things. Yeah, there's an alpha generation.
There's an alpha generation?
Yeah, so we have millennials, which would be Gen Y. Gen X would be you and me. Then Gen Y are millennials. Then we have Gen Z. And now we have the next generation, which is Generation Alpha.
Because we ran out of letters. Now we're going to go to Greek letters.
Sort of like hurricanes and tornadoes, or fair hurricanes, enough. We give them names and yeah.
Okay.
I guess that means Generation Beta is about 20 years out.
Well, and I think it's interesting, when you were talking about that, is the whole idea of being an expert. Is I think that when we know people who we see as experts, they know a lot more about whatever the thing is that they would be considered an expert on than we do. And so while we see them as an expert, they might, and this would be my situation, I would say I know other people who are much more of an expert than I am. And so that's why I think it's helpful for me to think that way. My thought is that once I feel like I'm an expert, what do I need to learn? And so now I know everything that's right. And why do I need to spend any time learning anymore, since I feel like I have all the information, all the answers, because I'm the expert. And
there's always more to learn.
Always more to learn. And no matter what the situation. And I think that's the interesting thing, is that our experience does control a lot of what we do. And if we choose not to expand our experience, we're going to be stuck in the same pathway with doing the same things forever, because that's controlling what we do and how we act. There's nothing new that's going to impact that to have us act differently.
Is that your one thing?
I think so.
Okay. Mine is that when we talk about our experience and it controlling us, it can either limit us or provide us with opportunities. It limits us in the sense that, oh, it's my way or the highway. I know everything. I'm an expert. This is right. Or it can provide opportunities in the sense that, okay, I know my experience. I know about red lipstick. Wow, someone's got black lipstick on today. That's kind of interesting. Huh. Oh, if there's red and black, maybe there's purple. Maybe there's gray. Maybe there are all these colors I never thought about. And thinking about that possibility opens doors.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the things when you were talking about that program we're doing on December 5th at noon Eastern time. It's an opportunity to explore those ideas and to get out of our comfort zone of what we know, what our experience is, what our perspective is, and start to look at other opportunities there in a way that doesn't feel confrontational, doesn't make us feel unintelligent, uninspired, because it's very easy to be like, oh, I don't know anything about this topic. I'm not even going to take it on. We found a way to really enhance how you look at those things and walk away with a sense of, oh, the possibilities that creates. And I think that's the exciting part to me. When we've done it in the past for me, it's like, oh, wow. I thought that was a limiting factor, but now it's really an opportunity. Thank you.
Well, I think that's part of it is that I think so often we don't, it's not that we're thinking about what else could we provide. Could we open up? It's just the fact that we're stuck.
Yep.
And we're stuck in this belief that I should know everything I need to know to be a leader, to run a business. It's my business. Why wouldn't I know that? I'm the leader. I was hired because I have an expertise. And, I think when we stop and that gets us stuck when something pops up that we don't know what to do with or how to deal with. And I think it's an opportunity to say, maybe there are other things out there that I could gain that could be really valuable and have an impact on what's real for me, so that I can now start to deal with other people or other things that have different knowledge, experience, and perspective. I think that's the challenge, right? Is that you take, and that's one of the reasons I think it's hard to manage people, is that our knowledge, experience, and perspectives are different. And so what might be controlling the way we act is also that same for them is controlling the way they act. And since they're not the same, it's going to be very hard to get on the same page, because we can't even imagine or have any clue of what is their knowledge, experience, and perspective that is controlling the way they act, unless we take the time and figure out how to dive into that, to differently understand it. So then we can say, interesting. Well, based on their experiences, because of where they grew up or what they did or how people shared thoughts and ideas with them,
or where they've worked in the past,
or
what college program they went to, or high school, or
this is the best friend
of their kid in 6th grade. Who knows?
Right. And that's the process they follow, not the process that we have, for us, has been tried and true. And now we're trying to get them to change, which, as we said before, it's new knowledge, experience, and perspective for them that makes it challenging sometimes to go against what we know and what has been real for us.
As Stephen says, my new boss, sounds like Stephen found a job if he has a new boss, right? Yeah. Congratulations, Stephen. My new boss shared his resume first thing. That's an interesting way to start that discussion towards different experience, right?
It's a start towards it, yes. Although I think your resume is just one piece of that puzzle. Because even within that resume, you have different organizations that you were with that had different ways of acting, of thinking, of what their perspective was, the way they looked at things. And, I think it's an important thing. And one of the things I shared with someone one time was, go ask your employees. Like, the resume is one thing. Okay, now I know a little bit about what they've done. Now what I'd like to know is, how do they act, or how do they react? How do they like to get feedback? When do they like to get feedback? What are the things that motivate and drive them, as opposed to what motivates and drives others? Now you're starting to get into what's real for them. How do they think about start times? Some organizations is very fluid. You show up when you show up. Others is like, you've got to be there at 8:00 on the spot. And you're being evaluated based on your promptness. And if you're not clear around what that is, or people aren't clear, and someone walks in with a different perspective, think about you or I trying to go back to work.
Hold up. Whoa. Rephrase that. I work every day.
Okay, think about if you went to work.
But that's a really interesting thing. Based on experience, I know there are people that would hear that and say to me, hey, Tom said it. You don't really work with what you're doing now.
Yes, although
because their experience is being a small business owner, you don't, you do whatever you want, whenever you want. You have no rules. Money just flows in. You can claim it as a work expense. Everything's perfect. There are the people that believe that.
No doubt. And I think
you fell into the trap by saying going back to work. What you meant to say, I believe, was going back to a full-time job working for someone else.
In an office. Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I work in an office. It's my second bedroom, but it's an office. I mean, there are 4 walls. Come on.
In your house.
In the penthouse.
Oh, I'm sorry.
With a lovely view. I got to tell you, the trees are really pretty right now.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that's part of it, right? Is that we all, our knowledge, experience, and perspective on that is something. So going to work for someone else in their space, we've built this. What's real for us now is very different, and going to do that, I would think that whoever would be managing us or others like us, it would take a while for them to understand what's real for us based on our knowledge, experience, and perspective. Because it would not be like someone who they hired from another company,
right,
that did similar work in similar ways. It would be a challenge for them to figure out how are you going to work together based on what we know, have experienced, and our perspective around it is.
Wow.
Clearly your perspective around work was a hot spot, which is fair. That's what's real for you. I'm all right with it. I'm not judging it.
Well, and I was also speaking for a lot of other people who hear
probably
that.
For me as well. So thank you.
It is a hot spot for a variety of reasons.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for being with us today. We appreciate your attendance, your listening, and your comments, Stephen. Thank you. We appreciate that. If you happen to be listening to this or watching this later, please feel free to share your thoughts and ideas in the comments. If you're watching the podcast, we know there's no place to comment. So we invite you to join us in our Sculpt Your Business from Chaos and Confusion to Confidence and Control Facebook group, where you can share your thoughts and ideas there and benefit from the thoughts and ideas shared by others. So we look forward to seeing you inside of that group. If not, remember, we're off on Wednesdays. We will see you Thursday morning.
No, we're doing other things. We're not off. I'm at a meeting at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, another meeting at 7 a.m. You got to help me here.
Man, you're awful sensitive.
Some of us are working hard. You make it sound like we're going to sleep till noon.
All I was saying was that we are not on today's Antidote tomorrow.
No, you said we're off tomorrow.
We're off. The show is not on tomorrow.
That's different.
Is off. Here's how people get into arguments, correct? Is that
correct?
Your perspective is when I say off is that you're off just goofing off doing nothing. Mine was that off just means we're not doing the show. So what was real for us was different. And trying to understand that is where so many of the challenges lie, is that what's real for each of us is unique. And so sometimes there can be miscommunications, misunderstandings around what one person shares, because that's not in alignment with what's real for someone else. And when we believe we are right, then we are going to stand up for that. And unfortunately, that can lead to getting stuck and not being able to come to solutions that are going to help us learn. So, all right, the broadcast will not be broadcast tomorrow.
Kurt's with us, and good morning, Kurt. Kurt says, perfect example, happens every single day, especially via text and email.
Yes, because we don't always know the knowledge, experience, and perspective of the person we are communicating with. Even though Bob and I have been on the show 941 times, we still sometimes are not in sync with what's real for each of us. So We will not be broadcasting tomorrow. We will be very busy doing other things.
Now it sounds like you're just making it up.
No, I have plenty to do tomorrow. I have to do a
I was going
presentation.
to say, I'm running from about 5 a.m. straight to about 3 p.m. tomorrow.
Okay. And so we will see you Thursday morning, 7 a.m.-ish Eastern time for our next episode of Today's Antidote.
In the meantime, whether you're busy working, playing, it doesn't matter. Family, friends, by yourself, it doesn't matter. Embrace the
It
renegade.
sounded like
you.
it mattered.
Just be doing something, even if it's nothing.
Is doing nothing something?
For me, it's something. I
Okay.
struggle to do nothing.
Okay. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for being with us. Go out and enjoy your day. We will see you soon.